All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. So hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Discovering Dynamo, Best Uses for Civil 3D, being presented by Daniel Cleary and Kevin Wentworth. My name is Jess. I am the event coordinator here at Microdesk. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please be sure that you're typing them in the question box of the GoToWebinar control panel, not in the chat panel. Also, a recorded version of this webinar will be available on our website and YouTube channel within a couple of days. So you'll receive an email once that link is available. And before we jump into the webinar, I just want to introduce Microdesk to you all. Microdesk was founded in 1994 as an Autodesk reseller with a simple mission to assist architecture, engineering, construction, owners, and GIS firms with improving workflows and integrating project delivery technologies. 25 years later, and that mission still holds true. Microdesk is a well-established AECO consulting firm with 13 offices in the US and UK. We have over 230 AECO consultants, solution specialists, and software developers that can help in all sectors, all disciplines, and all stages. Some of the hottest topics in the AEC world are globalization, urbanization, and sustainability. Urbanization studies suggest that the US will build 114 cities the size of Boston in the next 30 years. Here at Microdesk, we can help to make sure you're prepared to meet those demands. We use software from industry leaders and combine it with our vision and passion for sustainability to meet the demands of urbanization. Our team of industry expert consultants are redefining project delivery and asset management. We're committed to helping clients realize the business benefits of BIM quickly and economically by facilitating the use of innovative technologies and processes. Whether it's streamlining your design, construction, or operations, our consulting team is the nation's largest and most experienced group of AECO technology consulting professionals. Microdesk's clients represent some of the nation's most respected organizations and public agencies, including the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Denver Airport, Robert A.M. Stern, and Columbia University, amongst others. And to help support the industry with these demands of urbanization, we provide full service consulting. This includes building information modeling services, enterprise strategy and workflow assessments, mentoring and support, and much, much more. We partner with world leaders such as Autodesk and IBM to utilize innovative technologies and methodologies to empower sustainable design and overcome local challenges. Our vision is to reduce the environmental impact of urbanization by helping the AECO industry to design, construct, and operate better projects more efficiently by leveraging the full potential of BIM, VDC, and asset management. Now I'm going to hand it off to Daniel Cleary. He's going to jump on to take you through today's webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Cleary. I'm a solution specialist at Microdesk. I'm super happy to be here today. I loved using Dynamo. It was a huge game changer in my career, and it's helped me a lot, and I still use it today for all kinds of stuff. Yeah, about 1 year ago, I watched a webinar on Dynamo by Ray Tang, who works at Microdesk, and I thought it was really awesome, and it really actually pushed me to get a job here, and now me and Ray work on all kinds of projects together. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, about 3 years ago, I started using Dynamo. I was an electrical designer, and I was working on mainly really big projects, data centers, healthcare facilities, really just repetitive kind of buildings where they're all pretty similar, but there's kind of minute differences, constant redesign, really almost no room for error. You know, you really don't want RFIs with data centers, especially. The projects go really, really fast. So I looked to Dynamo to help for just automation in general, because of the repetition of a lot of these workflows. But yeah, now kind of don't work on Dynamo as much. I'm more of a, I work on the BIMRX team at Microdesk, and I use C#. But Dynamo kind of helped me get there. And going from Dynamo to Python and now C# has been a pretty good pathway. But Dynamo will really, it's a really good starting point for anyone trying to get into this area of automation for BIM. So yeah, let's talk about the agenda today. Why should you care about Dynamo? That's really the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we're going to talk about how to learn Dynamo and how to get started if you're a complete beginner, which a lot of you might be, especially if you're using Civil 3D. It's kind of new to that program. So, and then after you've gotten past the beginner stages and you've maybe messed around with Dynamo a little bit, how do you kind of further your learning and further your ability to automate Civil 3D and Revit and AutoCAD. So we'll talk about what an API is. I'm going to probably say that a few times, so we'll have to talk about what it is. Using the Dynamo forms, which is a great way of how I learned to use Dynamo and Python. Just talking to people online, because there's big communities that are all trying to learn this as well. And learning and implementing Python, the Revit API, and because I come from the Revit side, I will kind of talk to that a little bit more. But then afterwards, we're going to give some examples with Kevin Wentworth using Civil 3D and actually showing some use case demonstrations. I'll try to keep it more Civil 3D stuff, but yeah, like I said, I'm more from the Revit side, so it's a little bit tougher. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to end up being pretty similar, and there's going to be a lot of coordination between the two. Yeah, so why should you care about Dynamo? It's going to help you automate repetitive tasks. With all these softwares, there is constant repetitive tasks being done. Just, automating your workflows is kind of how I like to say it. You know what you're doing. It might change a little bit every time. And Dynamo can help with that. And it's going to save you all kinds of time by automating those tasks. Error in design. It's going to help with model consistency. If you have a program doing your design, the errors are only going to happen within your code, really. You're not going to have a misclick or a mistype. And when you start seeing errors, you can edit your code rather than going back in and QCing kind of almost random human error. You can go into the code and see, all right, well, this is what went wrong here. And yeah, it's just a better process rather than clicking around and typing and making mistakes that way. And in doing this, you can deliver more complete and complex projects. Everyone knows that, a lot of times the more data that you put into a model, the more specific you get, the less RFIs you're going to get. And if you have more time to make more complex models, it's going to help. And automating your tasks is going to allow you to have that time. And I kind of just said that, to deliver more information in your models, which will help with the construction. Yeah, you can get more sheets, more schedules, just kind of a deeper level of information. And it's going to help you interface with Revit, AutoCAD, Excel. I mean, all kinds of things. It doesn't really end there, but especially with Civil 3D, I think there is some coordination with AutoCAD and Revit. I'm sure some people have it. And for most people, we like to use Excel, and there really isn't a great way to go from Excel into any of these programs still, other than BIMRX. But you can use Dynamo to interface with Excel, which can be really helpful. QA/QCing, just automating the process of QA/QC, checking different parameters of elements in your model. Like for me as electrical, I was checking voltages on all the mechanical equipment, but you can turn that into anything really. So, yeah, just it makes your job easier. So if that's not convincing, I'm not really sure what will be. So how to get started on Dynamo? I would start here. The Dynamo Primer it's great. It has all the fundamentals of Dynamo. It's a huge document. It's always being updated, and it's just going to walk you through from a complete beginner of not knowing any Dynamo, and it'll help get you started on just automating small things at the beginning, and just to be able to start automating all on your own without a teacher. If you are the first one, maybe in your company, or the first person that you know personally that is starting Dynamo. And really, this webinar isn't meant to be a Dynamo primer. I'm going to try to give you the information to get started, but there are great videos out there. There's a ton that will talk you through the really small fundamentals of getting started with Dynamo and making your first script. And some will pick it up faster than others, but yeah, it's a beginner program. It's not meant to be super complicated to where you need a computer science degree. Yeah, and I think I mentioned this already, but the forms, Dynamo forms, it's mainly Revit in there right now, but there is a civil category now, and it's starting to get a little bit of traction in there where people are figuring out Python and talking about best practices for using Dynamo with Civil 3D. And we can go over the forms a little bit later and how those work, but the forms were essential for me to get started on Dynamo. I had all kinds of strange questions about electrical because it's not a very common use of Dynamo. It's mainly architecture, and I think Civil 3D is going to be the same thing. So asking questions in the forums is invaluable. Yeah, and you should use the Civil 3D category when you do that. The next is packages. Downloading packages in Dynamo, it's basically essential as well especially when you get started. Packages it's just extra. So there's nodes in Dynamo, but yeah, it just extends the ability to use Dynamo basically, and these are some of my favorite ones. Civil connection is I haven't used it too much, but I know that's the most common one for Civil right now, where it connects Civil 3D to Revit, and there's all kinds of nodes that help you with that. And then the rest of these are, some of them are Revit, and then some of them are just general programming. Some will help with Excel, but yeah, you should get into packages a little bit. All you have to do is install them, and you can start using them right away. This is probably where I would get started for Civil 3D. When you start getting to the point where you need to do something that you can't find in a package, or you can't find an out-of-the-box Dynamo, and maybe you need to get some kind of information off of something that's not really commonly used, like a corridor or something like that. You could start going into the API reference guide, and we will go over that a little bit. That's kind of when you're starting to get a little more advanced and you're starting to hit the point where you really know how to use Dynamo, and there's not a lot of out-of-the-box stuff, and there really may not be for Civil. So this is essential, I think, for Civil 3D, just because it's one of the lesser used cases for Dynamo. And then this is actually my webinar from the last time I talked about Dynamo. This is for Dynamo for Revit and project managers, mainly on Revit projects. It's worth a watch, especially if you use Revit. So yeah. Okay, what's an API? The definition is it's a set of functions and procedures allowing the creation of applications that access features or data of an operating system, application, or other service. So that's kind of a strange definition. It's always complicated to explain what an API is, and it's important to be able to explain it because you may have to talk to your boss about why you're spending so much time on Dynamo. I know I absolutely did. People see the squiggly lines all over the place and they don't know what you're doing, and trying to explain it to other people that you need to teach. You'll be using the word API, and you just you have to brief over what it actually is. So Dynamo lets you access APIs. Dynamo now comes with, or at least they have a downloadable version for Civil 3D. So if we follow the diagram here, we have Dynamo, and we'll open Dynamo within Civil 3D, and we can use Dynamo to make an API request into Civil 3D. Civil 3D, at the end of the day, is a database. Revit is a database. It's a bunch of information that's kind of all organized together, and Civil 3D allows you to see what's going on in that database pretty well. But if you just, Dynamo is just to get the information. It's not to visualize it. So Dynamo allows or gives you the ability to make an API request, and it's going to ask Civil 3D, hey, we want some information, and Civil 3D is going to respond with the information, and it's going to give it back to Dynamo. And basically, that's how Dynamo works. It's the same way for Revit. It's the same way for all kinds of things. Almost everything has an API now. Yeah. So, and if we're going to talk about the API a little bit, we can kind of take a peek at it for a second. So this is just the Autodesk Civil 3D page. If you scroll down on the left, you have your API reference guide. So if we open that up, we're going to go to the database service. You can use all of these from Dynamo, but we're going to look at database service because this is going to be most relevant to probably what everyone is using Dynamo for Civil 3D for. And here it's going to give you all of your classes. So you might recognize some of these, you might not, but once you start really getting into Civil 3D Dynamo, you're going to have to look at this because there's not a node for everything. There's not an out of the box thing for everything with Civil. Here's one that there probably is, but most people will recognize corridor. I think everyone that uses Civil 3D is going to know what a corridor is. So we click on that, it's going to give us the definition of it, and it's just going to give us a bunch of information for it. But really, if we want to get into it, we have to click members. So that was here. I did that kind of quick. So we scroll down, you can see corridor members. And the Revit one is a little more organized. Unfortunately, Civil 3D is a little messy where you have to scroll all the way down. But so now we're in the corridor, the corridor members, and we have some methods and we have properties. So when you're writing in Python, or even when you have an out-of-the-box node, it's going to be using stuff like this. So yeah, you can just, it really explains them well. Compute fingerprint. So when you can click on that and you can see if we had a corridor and we did dot compute fingerprint in Python, it's going to give us the fingerprint entity. And here we can do, we could have a corridor and say dot application. It's going to give us the application. It's going to give us the application file, the Civil 3D file. And we can get all kinds of stuff out of this corridor. And we can set and get stuff. So like this one, you can set the corridor style. So we're kind of getting in deep here. We're kind of getting into the weeds of what the API is, but it's good to show sort of what's going on in the back end. And yeah. So when you hear someone say API or you read it, you'll kind of know what they're talking about, hopefully now. So yeah, so you're going to run into all kinds of questions once you start using Dynamo. It's just what happens. It's complicated to get into, and especially if you're starting with Civil 3D and you maybe don't understand it as well as an advanced user, you're going to have even more questions. So, you'll go to the Dynamo forms and you can see here in this picture there's a little Civil 3D, that orange square. That's the category, and you can set that as soon as you get into the forms and just filter for all Civil 3D things. The first thing you're going to want to do when you have a question and you go to the forms for the question, you're going to want to search. You have to search first. It has a pretty good search function, and there's not too much to go through in the Civil 3D just yet. So maybe look for it because there's probably a discussion going on. Most likely, it's a common workflow that you're trying to automate. Next, if you do find that no one has run into your problem yet, and you do want to make a post, you need to make it easy to understand. You have to really explain what you're trying to do. Add some pictures, like in this example. Get the red text, get the red boxes around your text. Add your files. Add your Revit, your Dynamo file, your Civil 3D file, your AutoCAD, your Excel. You have to add all that stuff in, and maybe you can't share your Civil 3D or your Revit. You need to maybe make a testing file, testing ground, where people can test it out, because that's what's going to get your problem solved faster. People don't want to guess around of what you're trying to do. No one, at least most people, don't get paid to be on the Dynamo forums. So make it really easy for them. And I've had a lot of success on the forums with all kinds of questions. And sometimes it's answered in a week, and sometimes it takes a month. But as long as you kind of start putting stuff in the forums, people actually generally will help you, which is pretty nice. And there are people that work for Autodesk that are in the forums and will answer all kinds of questions for you. And down here is just this is the link to what I thought was a very well put Civil 3D Dynamo form post. So advanced Dynamo, Python Dynamo. Just click through here. So if you're going to get started using Python, which I do recommend when you start using Dynamo, because they do go so well together, is you get this book, and it's seriously, it's about $20. It's it's not anything crazy, and it's free online. AutomateTheBoringStuff.com. It's completely free. I wish I knew about this book when I started learning Python. I kind of grinded it out and used the internet a lot, and asked a lot of questions on forums. And if I had had this book, I think I would have really been able to cut maybe 6 months to a year off of just running into really simple errors. So yeah, that's a great book. The next one is with learning Python. That helped me is click into package nodes. So we talked about packages in the beginning. When you download packages, sometimes they're going to have this kind of layered look, like in this bottom right corner, in isolated view. If they have this layered look, then you can click into them, and you'll see that there's almost always a Python node that you can look at and see how they're writing their code. This isn't thousands of lines of code. Usually, it's most of the time it's really maybe 50 lines at the most. Just kind of, you can go through step by step and maybe try to figure out what's happening, or at least maybe snag the first half of it to get started, and then be on your way with your own Python node. There's nothing against taking nodes. It's if someone puts it in a package and you can click into it and open the Python, then it's fair game for you to use and change around. And so onto the forms, we talked about kind of using Dynamo forms. The other one for Python is Stack Overflow, which is just general programming forms. But that's going to be for maybe kind of more complicated questions that you might have. But I've also had success there as well, with complicated Python things that I was trying to do. But yeah, copying, pasting code is a great way to learn. Don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't do that. Lastly, I'll try to sum this up so we can get on to the examples. Just looking forward into Dynamo for Civil 3D. There's a few things that I really like for Revit, and a lot of them are definitely going to be applicable, at least in the future, if not right now, for using Dynamo in Civil 3D. The first is PyRevit. This is an add-in for Revit. That it's all written in Python. It's a great way to learn Python. And the next is autocomplete for Python. So when you're writing your code, your computer is going to guess, hey, what's coming next? And so it just helps you write more correct code. I can see that coming as well to Civil 3D and in the near future. And lastly is Autodesk Refinery, so generative design. I'm sure some of you have heard about this. Generative design is just letting designers input like design goals and certain parameters into a Dynamo file, is what Autodesk's Refinery uses. It uses Dynamo, and it generates hundreds of different designs around these parameters and these design goals, and it allows the user to kind of pick and see alternate design options very quickly. So I think this will absolutely come to Civil 3D if you can't use it already. But they did include it in the new Revit 2021 out of the box. You don't have to install it or anything. So I think this is a growing program that you're all going to see soon. So yeah, with that, I'm going to pass it off to Kevin Wentworth and yeah, look at some examples.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Dan. And I'm going to go ahead and show my screen, and hopefully everybody can see my screen and hear me okay. If somebody like Dan or Jess can just confirm with me that everyone can hear me okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit here. That was a great introduction to what Dynamo is and what it can do and what the future holds for it. I really want to go in and just show you guys basically what it can do in Civil 3D. So we're going to kind of switch gears. I'm going to be working all in the software today. But first, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Kevin Wentworth. I'm an AECO project implementation specialist at Microdesk. I've been here for about 3.5 years now, but I have a little over 8 years of AECO experience. So I specialize in AutoCAD Civil 3D. I'm an AutoCAD Civil 3D certified professional. Mostly what I do here is I build templates for firms. I consult on their BIM workflows, and I also mentor. So a lot of what I do is on-site training and on-site one-on-one mentoring. Obviously now with the times that we're in, those services have kind of dwindled, but just because we can't go on site doesn't mean we can't help you, consult you on your workflows and mentor you through your Civil 3D workflows. So if there's something that you need, if you need help with, whether it's alignment workflows or corridor workflows, maybe it's grading tools, or maybe it's utilizing Dynamo. Just reach out to us because we can provide you guys with a screen sharing service where we'll be able to work one-on-one together over the phone. Now keep in mind that Dynamo is new. It's only available in AutoCAD Civil 3D 2020, so I'm still learning every day too. I would consider myself a Civil 3D enthusiast for Dynamo. Just seeing some of the ways that repetitive tasks are streamlined has made me very excited about what the future holds for Dynamo. But just keep in mind that it's new. It's been around in Revit for a long time now, but it just got introduced into Civil 3D 2020. So with that being said, let's go ahead and head out into our software here and we'll take a look at some use cases. So I'm in a drawing right now. Keep in mind that you have to be in a drawing in order to access your Dynamo, like Dan was talking about. You want to be in your Manage tab. And also remember that, again, this is only available for Civil 3D 2020. So if you're trying to access these tools in Civil 3D 2019 or 18 or so on and so forth, you're not going to be able to access these tools. But when you download Civil 3D, it just comes in as a panel. So you head into your Manage tab. You head over into your visual programming tab on the right-hand side, and you're going to see your Dynamo button, which when you click on that, it's going to bring you into the Dynamo user interface. And you also have this Dynamo player. Now, this Dynamo player takes about 5 seconds to open here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it while I talk about it. But this is really cool if you need to piece together scripts. You might not be able to fit a full script into one workflow, so you might want to utilize this Dynamo player in order to run a sequence of events. Maybe a particular workflow you need to run 3 or 4 scripts in order to complete that entire workflow. So what this Dynamo player does is it gives you a full folder access to, maybe you have project specific workflows. Maybe you have things that you want to store on different series in your project folders. So this allows you to search different folders and access sequences of Dynamo scripts. So this is very helpful when you're trying to piece together a streamlined workflow that includes more scripts than one. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take you now into the Dynamo interface. So you go ahead and launch Dynamo, and it's going to bring you into a brand new user interface. You'll see this is where you can open scripts, you can create new scripts. You're going to see all the recent scripts you've had. And just as Dan was talking about, it's very important to start utilizing the references and the forums because you learn a ton in these things. Don't be afraid to go into the Dynamo dictionary and try to understand what some of these nodes mean. It's a lot to take in. Dynamo was built because we're not all programmers. It's trying to ease the burden of the programming aspect to something that somebody, a surveyor or an engineer, can understand. But it's still going to take a little bit of time to try to understand this user interface. So try to use these tools as best as you can. There's video tutorials out there. There's getting started workflow documents out there that'll really help you get started. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to head into some of the workflows and how we can apply Dynamo to drawings. So this first initial drawing I have open right now, you're going to see I have 3 different objects in my drawing. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is the fact that everything right now is on layer 0. This is going to be a really simple Dynamo script, but I think it's going to be a good warm up here as we start to move forward. So notice everything is on layer 0. So after you launch Dynamo, you're going to find the script that you want to run. This particular script is going to be a script that's going to enable us to change the layers of all these objects from layer to a different layer. So you'll go ahead and open up the Dynamo script. Now this over here on the right hand side, you can navigate the Dynamo script just like you would with Civil 3D. So I'm using my mouse wheel right now to just zoom in and zoom out. You'll notice over here you have some tools for pan and zooming. You also have basically a zoom extents. Now what you'll see here is a bunch of series of nodes. Now you can also group these nodes, and that really helps for the organization of the nodes. Now, just to talk a little bit about these nodes that are being used in this particular script, you're going to notice this one being used pretty much every single Dynamo script. It's the document current. So this is the node that is enabling Dynamo to go out into Civil 3D and grab the document. Now, there's another node where you can grab the model space. So if you can think about it, you'll be able to access paper space too. So this is telling Dynamo to access the current drawing and the current model space. Now there's more nodes here set. This is saying to grab all the objects on a layer. You'll see basically these nodes are feeding into different nodes. There's input nodes and there's output nodes. So what you're pretty much doing is creating a connected series of events in order to get to one common goal at the end. The common goal at the end in this particular scenario is going to be to set all the objects onto a different layer. So the original layers you're going to see is 0. The layers that you want to convert these into are C road. So what you're noticing here now is that it's going to set all of these objects onto C road. Now, if you look down here at the bottom of your Dynamo, you're going to notice that you can set this either to automatic or you can set it to manual. Now this was set to automatic. So if I minimize out my Dynamo interface, what I'm going to notice here is that now all of my objects are automatically set to C road. So everything that was on layer 0 has now been transferred to C road just by opening up a Dynamo script. So if you were trying to maybe turn these layers into something different, you might need to go and make some edits in here. You might want to change this from C road to, maybe we'll do something like C dash property dash line, something like that. Now remember that this is an automatic, so just by minimizing this out, you're going to notice all my layers changed. Everything is now on C property line. So very simple script, but it's very useful. If you want a particular layer to now go into a different layer, instead of going in and doing select similar on all these objects and trying to figure out, oh wait, I can't select similar because these are different types of objects, it's a much more streamlined way of taking one layer, taking all the objects, and then transferring them onto a different layer. So very useful tool there. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about the interface before we move on into use case examples here. So what we're looking at is we have the interface where we create all of our nodes and all of our groups, and we actually create the scripting. But if we want to find out what tools are available for us, we'd want to look over here in the library section. Now, what you guys are probably going to end up doing a lot is using the search functionality over here. So if you're looking for something like an alignment, you can just type in alignment and it's going to give you the different types of alignment nodes that are available for you. But it has this grouping based system as well. If you guys look on this top section up here, you're going to notice there's add-ons and then there's the out of the box. What I have set up in red here is everything that's available in the out of the box tools. So just by downloading Dynamo or Civil 3D 2020, you're going to have access to these Dynamo out of the box nodes. One more thing to take into consideration is that there are updates in Civil 3D Dynamo as well. So, just like you would go on and you download a service pack for Civil 3D 2020, you can go on into your desktop app, and you'll see that there will be Dynamo for Civil 3D updates as well. So when they first released Dynamo for Civil 3D, there weren't as many nodes in there now as there are when they released that first service pack. So if you are starting to use Dynamo, make sure you go on your Autodesk desktop app and you download that service pack for Dynamo, because there's more nodes available. So if we look in the Civil 3D section just to see what we have for out of the box, we'll look in Civil Objects. You can see we have alignment things where we can target alignments. We can access the alignments that are in the drawing. We can access profiles, a bunch of different types of nodes that are available for alignments and profiles. And you also have things like Cogo points, where you can access Cogo points. You can access point groups, corridors, things of that nature. So as you're building out these scripts, you kind of have to think about the workflow that you would do in Civil 3D and try to match up the particular node that will do what you're trying to do in Civil 3D. Again, it takes a little bit of time to try to figure out how that workflow works, because you have to basically try to find a node for each one of your, it's not just basically like go from start to end. It's go from start to option A to option B to option C, and then get to your end goal. So there's probably a sequence of events of 3 or 4 things that you need to get to that end goal. So you got to really kind of piece together your workflow. I would recommend actually writing out a workflow document of how you want to achieve it before you go into Dynamo. Now, like Dan was talking about, there's also packages that are available for you to download as well. So sometimes there might not be something available to you, but it's available in a package. Like if you look in these add-ons, I went on and downloaded a Civil 3D Toolkit package, and what that enabled me to do was access things like section views. So there's more options available that that programmers out there have written extra coding into the Dynamo interface to give you more options to do things. Up in the top section here, you're going to see this packages section where you can click on package, you can search for a package, and let's say you were looking for that Civil 3D Toolkit, you would just type in Civil 3D, find your Civil 3D Toolkit, and the way you can kind of separate the junk from the might be good, might not be good to crap is by how many likes are on here. So you'll see this particular one has 32 upvotes, so you can feel comfortable downloading that one. Now, some of them you might have to filter through. This Civil connection here is how you get to Revit from Civil 3D. So that's going to be an important one if you're going to be connecting Civil 3D and Revit. So just because there's an out-of-the-box node not available doesn't mean that it's not available in a package that's out there. So just something to keep into consideration. Now we're going to keep on moving forward here with some use case examples to keep everybody interested here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that script. We're going to open up another drawing. And we're going to take a look at adding annotation along an alignment and also applying a block to that. So I'm going to open up this add annotation along alignment drawing. Now what we're going to notice in this drawing, what we have is we have an alignment, and we also have a block down here in the bottom right hand corner. So what my end goal is I'm going to take some information from an Excel spreadsheet, and then I'm going to have it figure out from the spreadsheet what station it should be adding the block on, and it's also going to add text wherever that block is too. So the spreadsheet I'm referring to, and it's actually a CSV file. So this is a comma delimited file, CSV format, that you can bring in from Dynamo as well. So you're going to notice column A has the station in which I want to drop that block on. B has the text that's going to appear on there. So let me go ahead and open up that Dynamo script. So I'll go ahead and find in my Civil 3D, there should be an add annotation along alignment. And I want to get through as many use case examples as I can here. So I'm not going to go into the weeds at what each one of these sections do, but you're going to see it's going to get the bridge info from a configuration file. In this case, the configuration file would be that CSV. and then it's going to get the alignment station and offset. It's getting the document over here. This is a whole grouping of nodes that will allow you to create the labels along the alignments. And you can see it can get pretty complex in here. There's a lot that is going into this, but what you can do is you can group these together, which will give you kind of a better sequence of events here. You can group these individual sections to kind of help you give an idea of what each one of these sequences are trying to achieve. Now, the end goal here are two things. There's two nodes here. First of all, it's creating text, and it's also creating a block reference. So that means that all of these individual nodes here are feeding into these output nodes, which is going to bring objects back into Civil 3D. So if you notice right now, I got nothing in this drawing, but as soon as I run this Dynamo script and I take a look at my drawing, you'll notice it's created a block and piece of text at station 200, station 500, and also whatever that last station was. So by taking information from an Excel spreadsheet, we were able to manage that information in the Excel spreadsheet and then read it from Dynamo and then bring those objects into Civil 3D. So let's keep moving on here. So now we're going to open up a drawing that has a corridor in it. So this is going to be add text and circle along a corridor feature line. So in this particular drawing, what we have is, I'm sure everybody's seen a corridor before, but what if we wanted to get a piece of text and a circle that shows the elevation at critical points along this corridor? So we probably have, edge of traveled way, we got edge of the daylight line, probably got a crown line in here. Let's take a look at what we have in these Dynamo scripts to see what we can pull from that corridor. So if I open up the script that's associated with that, you're going to see there's a couple segments here. First of all, we have get corridor feature line. So this is the particular grouping that is grabbing the feature lines from that corridor. And then we come in here, we have create text nodes, and we also have a create circle grouping for nodes. So what this script is doing is it's accessing certain feature lines. You're going to notice it's going to grab crown, edge of traveled way, and daylight. Now it's going to take all those critical points and it's going to create a piece of text that has the elevation at that point, and it's also going to create a circle at that point as well. So we'll go ahead and run this script. We'll look in Dynamo, and look, now we have pieces of text that represent the elevation at each one of those critical points along our corridor. So these are actually pieces of text within Civil 3D. So you can take these, you can move them around if you need to use. These are actual objects that you can use. Now, when you go back and you need to rerun that script because your corridor changes, you can just basically delete these objects here, and then you can rerun your script, and now you have an updated version of that. So, just kind of an easy example here of pieces of text, but you can also extract feature lines out of here. You can get station and offset values from feature lines. So there's a ton that you can do with corridors, and I'm sure you guys' minds are starting to wander now about things that you could apply this to on your day-to-day jobs. And that's the most important thing to remember here as we're going through these use case examples, is that, just because this is something that I'm showing you now, it's not limited to that. There's whatever your idea is, it's important for you to just get in there and start playing around with Dynamo and seeing if you can do it. And if you can't, if you need help, that's something that we can provide you with. You can call us up and we can try to guide you through how you're trying to get that particular Dynamo script to work. So let's keep moving forward with some more use case examples here. Now I want to show you this counterfort wall example, because we have a corridor in this drawing here, but you guys will notice with your retaining walls, if you look at something like a corridor and object viewer, we have all the sub-assemblies created. But what if we wanted to create some 3D modeling of all these counterfort walls at the end of our retaining wall? So we don't really have anything that is, a 3D visual representation of that counterfort wall. So let's take a look at how we can do that in Dynamo. So if I close this one out, I'm going to find that particular script that we need. Now, what this one is going to do is it's going to grab the attachment points at the top and the bottom of the wall. So all of this mess down here within this group is just basically a series of events that's telling Civil 3D to grab the top attachment points and the bottom attachment points of certain codes. So in this one, it's the retaining wall hinge and the retaining wall back. Now, once you get all of that information, what you need to do is you need to generate a three-dimensional object. So that's what this particular grouping is doing. Now, this here is what is creating that retaining wall shape. So I just want to show you what happens when you run this particular script. And this one might take a little bit longer than the others because there's a lot of information that's going on in the background, but you'll see it didn't take too long. You'll notice now I have three-dimensional objects. So I'm going to select similar on all these objects, and we're going to take a look at it in Object Viewer again. Now you're going to notice all of these three-dimensional counterfort walls have been created along our corridor. Now, another thing I could see this being used for is maybe street lamps or something like that, ties in a railway. Anytime you need to generate a three-dimensional object that will give you a better visual representation in Civil 3D, I could see this being used for. It's really going to streamline this workflow. Imagine having to drop all of these three-dimensional counterfort walls into your corridor model if you had to do that manually. So I'll keep going with a couple more examples here. Actually, I'm kind of running out of time. I'm going to skip one example. I want to show you an example that I did. This is actually a client-based example. They reached out to us. They had a challenge that they wanted to address, and we were able to accomplish that. So I just want to go ahead and open up the Dynamo script and show you what it can do here. And I need to go into Microdesk Built. Now, this particular workflow here, what their goal was they wanted to be able to get the station, the offset, and the curb radius along an alignment. Now, their straight curbing is anything that has a radius greater than 100 feet. Their curved curbing is anything with a radius less than or equal to 100 feet. So they need the station, the start station, the end station, the offset side, and the length of curb for this particular, for any street that they're doing their quantity takeoff on. Now, a couple things to keep in mind for drafting setup is with how this is working, they wanted to be able to use the polylines and create a layer system for it that has pay items associated with it. So their polylines need to be going in the direction of the alignment. That's the first thing that we need to keep in mind here. And the second thing that we need to keep in mind is good drafting practices, because the way Dynamo is set up, it's going to give you a start and end station value anywhere there is a node. So if you have, 15, 25, 40 nodes, extra nodes on this polyline, it's going to give you a station and offset value along there. So keeping your drafting practices and good, clean drafting practices is important here. Just keeping in mind that it's going to give you feedback anywhere where there is a node. But as I see, I'm running out of time here. So let me just run this script and show you what it can do. What their end goal is to get this in a spreadsheet format. So by creating this particular node, this Dynamo script, this one is going to be organized. I wanted to go into detail about what each one of these can do, but basically the end goal here is to export this raw data out so we can bring it into a better format. But one thing to keep in mind here is that we can freeze or unfreeze nodes as well. So because I had these frozen, when you run it, it wouldn't have created the spreadsheet, but you have the ability to freeze or unfreeze things. But you'll see we're going to get a curved curb output, and we're also going to get a straight curb output. You'll go ahead and run this script. And it should have given me there it is. It just didn't open because I already had Excel open. But what this gave me is a raw data output of all my curved curbing and all my straight curbing. So you're going to see the way that these spreadsheets are set up. This is a really raw format. So what you're seeing is the start station, the offset, the end station, the offset, and then the length of the radius of that the length of that particular curb. So what we can do is we can basically create a template, a different spreadsheet that has a template associated with it, and we can copy and paste these values in here. So I can take this raw data, I could copy that, and I could just do a paste special and utilize the formulas. That way this puts it in a better format for me. And you can always go into Excel as well, and you can go into the data section and you can choose to not filter, but sort by a particular start station. So now we have the start station, the end station, the offset, and the length, now all in a spreadsheet for them. So they used to have to go in, they used to have to do manual station and offset labels at every single location along the curbing. But now this is going to make their quantity takeoff so much easier. It's going to save them so much time. And now when a design changes, all they have to do is they just have to make sure CAD drafting practices are in order, rerun the script, and now they have a brand new quantity takeoff in the matter of seconds. So with that, I'll open this up for questions. I want to bring this back to our contact information as well. So, if you guys do need to reach out to us, that's our 800 number there. You can also contact me, kwentworth@microdesk.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
I did have one question, Kevin, by Adam. He says, would this change layer function change embedded layers, say layers inside blocks?
The answer to that is yes, it will. So that, it's going to, I think it depends on what that's a good question. That's a very good question, because it's definitely going to change the layer that the block, if the block is on that layer, it's definitely going to change that. But, I don't want to give you a positive answer right now, but I would say that it's probably just going to change the layer of the block, and it's not going to change all the embedded block layers. But I think that's something that we could do as well, because I believe there is a node in there that will actually access all of the line work and text and information within a Dynamo, within a Civil 3D block or AutoCAD block. So the answer to your question is we can make it work either way, depending on what you wanted it to do.
All right, if anyone has more questions, please feel free to put them in the question box on your control panel.
You're welcome, Adam.
All right, well, it doesn't seem like there are any more questions. Again, folks, if you do have questions later on, please feel free to email us or contact us. But thank you so much once again for attending our webinar. This will be up on our website and on our YouTube channel within a few days, and you will be receiving an email when that is ready. Thank you all, stay safe, and have a great one.
Thank you, everybody.